Rand Paul and Rick Perry have been trading editorial barbs as the Republican side of the presidential race starts to simmer. Rick Perry has found Paul's vulnerable underbelly and is looking to exploit Rand's reckless isolationist strain. Perry recently wrote in the Washington Post, quote, "Paul is an articulate advocate for his views, which are shared by many on the left and some on the right. But in today's world, with today's threats, we still cannot, quote, take blind shelter across the sea, rushing to respond only after freedom is lost." To which the senator from Kentucky responded in Politico, quote, "There are many things I like about Texas Governor Rick Perry, including his stance on the 10th Amendment to the Constitution. But apparently his new glasses haven't altered his perception of the world or allowed him to see it any more clearly. Oh, snap-a-doodle-doo, sunshine." All right, well, does attacking Rand Paul make him the natural front runner? And can he wriggle out of the perception that he's a military softy whose wussness is a terrorism magnet? Let's ask our brilliant and bold party panel tonight. We've got Guy Benson, at townhall.com political editor and a Fox News contributor. And we've also got celebrity ghostwriter and author. It's Michael Malice in the hottest of hot seats. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi. How are you? So, Matt, I will put this to you since you seem to be our resident Rand Paul expert. The fact that so many Republicans who want to be president are attacking him, does that make him super powerful, or is he like the elephant who's going to be brought down by a bunch of lions?
There's a new poll that came out, Zogby, I think 4 or 5 days ago, saying that Rand Paul has now emerged as the pretty clear front runner in this interminable already election season. He's survived all of the little blips so far, and he's just inching above and above people. Rick Perry is the 7th, at least by my count, presidential contender to go out and make a big fuss, either writing an essay in the Washington Post or giving a speech, tarring Rand Paul as a dangerous isolationist. You had Chris Christie last summer saying there's this dangerous strain of libertarianism going through both parties. You had Ted Cruz saying, you know, I'm a fan of Rand Paul normally, but kind of thing. Marco Rubio. Everyone has done this. It's a rite of passage to do this.
All right.
So, I mean, and it says to me that they are elevating him because he's the only person whose message is the starting point of the conversation.
And it could be a potentially fatal flaw. How does he overcome that? And maybe you don't want him to overcome it, but if he wants to be president, he cannot be seen as being a total wuss isolationist.
Well, interesting. I mean, this latest salvo is not particularly sharp criticism. I mean, for the most part, Rick Perry is out there saying that he is an isolationist, but that's about the sharpest criticism he's got. He doesn't lay out any specifics about what he would actually do differently in Iraq.
Who, Rand or
Mr. Perry does not lay out any specific differences with Rand. In any sort of practical sense, which Rand points out in his own response.
All right, so Guy, I mean, you're probably the most Republican on the panel tonight.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for being here and wearing that Republican green tie. I do adore it.
It matches. We were talking about this. Sort of your dress. You probably can't do a split screen, but it's pretty rockin'.
If it were the independent prom, your intellect would be the corsage, and I would accept it happily. So tell me, is Rand Paul a sitting target? Is his foreign policy his Achilles heel? Will it ultimately bring him down in a general election if he gets a nomination? And can he get the nomination?
Wow, lots of questions. I think that he has a shot at the nomination. I think that his foreign policy posture will be obviously one of the issues where he's vulnerable with the Republican base. I would generally be more on the Rick Perry side of this debate. Personally, I'm not sure Rick Perry, and I respect what he's done in Texas, is the best equipped Republican to make the case that he's trying to make here against Rand Paul. But I think the Republican Party would be foolish and asleep at the wheel to not recognize that what Rand Paul is articulating and the way that he views the world has huge cachet among a large swath of the American people that cuts across party lines, and to simply sort of dismissively sneer at it and call names is not a good strategy for the party.
So what do you do? I mean, Michael Malice, I will ask you, do you try and convince Rand Paul to all of a sudden sprout hawkish wings?
Well, I think Rand Paul is harking back to the Republican Party's roots. Bob Dole in 1976 got a lot of heat when he pointed out that all the wars of the 20th century were Democratic wars.
Democrat wars, I think was the...
That's correction accepted. This harkens back to the Woodrow Wilson, like, colonialism wing of the Democratic Party, and that's where it belongs. belongs. The Republicans have historically been for, America first. And the idea that sending our best and our brightest overseas to die is not dangerous just doesn't even make sense, in kind of an English sense.
The Rand Paul wing he's the one who went out and basically helped stop the Syrian intervention, which was incredibly unpopular among the American people. Afghanistan, unpopular, all these things. Okay. However, he is more non-interventionist, I think, than Americans are. And he's threading that needle constantly.
And I understand that. And Syria and drones, that was his shining moment. But now that we've got ISIS, now that we've got everything going on with Palestine and Israel, it's a totally different time, isn't it, than it was 6 months ago. And the fact that what he was saying about Syria certainly played to the public at large, I think that the roiling circumstances in the Middle East put him in a totally different posture, don't you, Guy?
I think yes, and I think that there are a legitimate case to build against his worldview on a number of fronts. There's also the X factor, and I don't want to make this sound like, conservatives and hawks are rooting for this to happen. Of course we're not, but there is the X factor. If we get attacked again, the current moment that the electorate is experiencing could change on a dime. Now, there's a long time between now and 2016, and I hope to God that doesn't happen. But, the attitudes of the public, and especially the Republican electorate, could change very quickly.
And by the way, Dick Cheney would be named de facto president, according to the Constitution.
It's in the rules.
Yeah, it's in the rules. And if it's not, he'll make them up. All right.